Nagoya in Japan, arguably the finest Grand Prix circuit of them all, and in front of an absolutely gigantic sellout crowd of fanatical Japanese aficionados, the 1994 World Championship could be decided.
But will it be decided with just 5 points between the two men duelling for the title with only 2 races left? Michael Schumacher needs to finish today's Japanese Grand Prix 10 points ahead of Damon Hill to be this year's world champion. But at least 6 other drivers could win here today, and that could make all the difference.
With such a commanding lead, one of the top men must win the championship. But there's still a battle for third between Berger and Häkkinen, with a mathematical chance for both Alesi and Barrichello. With 8 wins from 14 races and 36 points lost from exclusions, Schumacher will feel cheated if he doesn't end up as number 1 for 1995 today. But rules are rules, and in spite of having yet to finish at Suzuka, he's optimistic.
I feel very confident now. The car works perfect from the beginning on. And I do feel that because I have won Japan in Aido, this ban is going to be over, and I should be able to make a good result here.
For Damon Hill, things are a lot tougher. In both this year's races where he beat Schumacher on the track, the German was penalised by major problems. So the pressure on Damon is terrific. But as ever, he has a positive attitude.
I have to be positive, and I am very, very excited. I was just explaining to someone, right now I'm trying not to get worked up because I have to get a good night's sleep. I'm saving all my energy for tomorrow because I'm going to need every last ounce of it to beat Michael.
The main spotlight may be on Schumacher and Hill, but the one on Nigel Mansell is intense too, because when he finished with Indy racing, he said it would take him until Japan to acclimatise back to Formula One. Well, this is it. All but 11 of Benetton's 97 points this season have been won by Schumacher. But here at Suzuka, Michael has a teammate who can almost match his speed. Johnny Herbert, driving with his 3rd different team in 3 successive races. For the 5th time this year, the World Championship rivals share the front row of the grid, and it's Michael Schumacher's 6th pole position. Heinz-Harald Frentzen, a highest yet 3rd, shares row 2 with ex-world champion Nigel Mansell. Johnny Herbert, a superb 5th for Benetton on row 3 with Eddie Irvine's Jordan. Alesi's Ferrari is 7th with Häkkinen's McLaren 8th, just ahead of teammate Martin Brundle and Rubens Barrichello, who is 10th. The 2 Tyrrell Yamahas are on row 7, Mark Blundell and Ukyo Katayama. JJ Leto drives the 2nd Sauber, and in his first Grand Prix, Frenchman Frank Lagorce drives for Ligier. Japanese driver Hideki Noda starts 23rd in a Larousse for his 2nd Grand Prix, and there are 2 newcomers on row 13. Finland's Mika Salo for Lotus, and Japan's Taki Inoue for Simtek. And now, in weather conditions that are far from favourable, the race that could decide the championship. And Schumacher cuts straight across, and there's a McLaren coming up from the right, and Johnny Herbert has come out well. Johnny Herbert is up in the 4th position, so Schumacher leads.
Yes, that's Hans-Harald Frentzen, I think, who's through into 3rd place there. Damon Hill there is in 2nd place, and you can see there already the spray pooling behind these cars, and this is just what Schumacher wanted. Schumacher wants a clear track. He's the only one of these 26 drivers with a clear field of vision.
Yes, Schumacher leading now. You can see, as I said, with that clear track in front of him, the advantage he's got as a great rooster of spray goes up to interfere with the vision of Damon Hill. That's a curb camera. It's absolutely no use in this race at all because of the water on it. And Heinz-Harald Frentzen, the man who knows Suzuka so well, is in 3rd position. So into the hairpin. Hill is up there. That is Michael Schumacher leading on lap 1 in this 53-lap race.
Nigel Mansell, I believe, is down in maybe around about 6th place. He did not get a good start. He did not get a good start at the last Grand Prix in Spain, and he has not done so here either. But Damon is hanging on well. I'm impressed with this so far. This is a difficult start, He's got a lot of water on the track, and Damon did not go particularly well in the wet warm-up sessions. Now, on this main straight, Martin Brundle was telling me earlier on today that one has to keep in the groove and that one can even aquaplane. And that can potentially, of course, be absolutely catastrophic with this amount of water on the circuit. And that's Frentzen going off there. I think that's him off the circuit, getting back on, but certainly losing him time. That's Frentzen out of third place there.
And up to third goes Johnny Herbert. So the Benetton Fords, and that's Noda off, Hideki Noda, who started late, gets off the track in the Larousse, the Japanese driver, and it's still, of course, Michael Schumacher. Damon Hill. Now let's look back and see Johnny Herbert now away with Schumacher. Just look at those appalling conditions. Standing water on parts of the track which has been completely resurfaced.
Yes, and we can see Schumacher then, the back slid wide, he corrected the slide, but he's clearly being very delicate with the car. One really does need to be delicate here. But look at Damon Hill. I think this is tremendous driving from Damon Hill, because we could see from Schumacher's camera what it's like having spray in your face. Schumacher doesn't have that, but Damon Hill does. And he's driving virtually invisible at this point. He's coming up. Look at the visibility for us. Well, that's what Damon Hill's got. And he's got to try and close on Schumacher, pulling up to 170 miles an hour as they come in now to the Spoon Corner. And again, just watch the cars wriggling around, sliding inside the car. These moments feel like major moments. And the spin is not far off. We saw that Hans-Harald Frentzen there, clearly running wide, not spinning it, but so easy to make a mistake.
All the grit and determination in the world, and here's a replay, and watch for Nigel Mansell as Schumacher cuts right across. Damon Hill goes up into second place. Frentzen is in third position. The Ferrari comes up well, but Johnny Herbert goes through into fourth position, and Nigel Mansell drops back to sixth position. And now the rain is coming down so heavily, it looks like hail. It is hail. It's white hail pouring down outside the commentary box and onto the competitors, of course. I would not be at all surprised if the race is stopped. The course is going to be partially flooded before very much longer.
And I think what we should watch for now is potentially, rather than being stopped, for the safety car to come out. We need to look for the SC boards around, and the safety car is indeed mobilized. There is an SC board. There it is. That's on the other side of that board. We can't see it from the television picture, but beneath that yellow flag was a board saying SC. The safety car will now come out, and the field will form up behind the safety car, which will continue with the race at obviously much slower speed. And that's Johnny Herbert off.
Herbert out of the race, and as I say, I'm going to be very surprised indeed if it is not terminated, at least temporarily. But anyway, the safety car out. Johnny Herbert retires, and
Ukyo Katayama has just lost control on the main straight, and he's taken on the right-hand side of his car off. It's reasonably damaged, but he's absolutely fine. I'm quite sure about that, just indicating what can happen, as we suspected, if aquaplaning results.
That is Tanaki Inoue, who is right on the pit lane. It seems to me that there is absolutely no purpose to be gained in continuing the race in these conditions.
Then, after they'd lapped behind the safety car for 6 laps, the race restarted.
Schumacher gets away with a clear track. Damon Hill goes through, and down the right-hand edge, Lacey still in third position, Mansell is still fourth, Frentzen is fifth, Brundle is in sixth position. Then there's quite a long gap before Hakkinen goes through, followed by Gianni Morbidelli in eighth position, and as you can see from the caption, there are 43 laps to go at the Japanese Grand Prix, this potential World Championship decider, and the man who's got the World Championship by the throat at the present moment, Michael Schumacher, with 8 wins behind him from the races that he's driven in. That's to say 12 of the 14 races so far is in the lead, and out goes Frank Lagorce. That is the newcomer from Formula 3000, Frank Lagorce, driving in the Ligier team, and that's an indication not only of the fact that he's inexperienced in Formula 1 terms, but that the conditions are appalling, because that's Fittipaldi out, and that is Michele Alboreto. So it looks as though the wrong decision may have been made.
Well, I think that's also indication of the fact that somebody touched Lagorce there, because certainly that gesture from the cockpit really said, why did you do it? why did you hit me? We didn't see what happened, but I suspect that somebody did indeed nudge Lagorce and spin him around out of the race, which is a great shame. Lagorce being Olivier Panis's teammate in Formula 3000 last year. Michele Alboreto out so early once again in what's probably his last ever Grand Prix season, with what looks like his teammate there, Martini, going along to have words.
And Schumacher leads. Now we're on lap 11 in this, I expect, 2-hour race. Here's a replay. Now you see Fittipaldi go out of the picture there and spinning. Oh, and that's Gerhard Berger. Well, this is in effect a replay of Grand Prix that we have seen in these conditions before, and I don't know what the answer is, but it proves to me that it's a farcical situation. That is Gianni Morbidelli. That is Gianni Morbidelli, and if this doesn't pressure the race director to do something, I would be amazed and appalled, because the front of that car was missing in the same way that the front of Andrea Montemini's Simtek was missing at the Spanish Grand Prix, and I would judge that Morbidelli has been very, very lucky indeed to get away without serious leg injuries. Here's a replay. Let's see what happened. He went straight into the Armco, and the terrific force, because you can see that the front wheels and the suspension, everything right up to the bulkhead has been ripped off. There's one of the wheels on the right rolling out of the race, and still it continues. As we look again at Michael Schumacher pressing on, he was the first to come upon the Morbidelli problem, and out goes the McLaren of Martin Brundle with the right rear wheel missing. I think it is absolutely ridiculous to carry on in these circumstances. Somebody is going to come off very badly indeed if this race is not stopped or slowed down again. Red flag, the red flag, the race is being stopped on lap 15. Martin Brundle, an upset Martin Brundle, understandably has confirmed that when he went off, he did hit a marshal. We understand, and I emphasise understand, that the injury is a broken leg. Heaven knows that's bad enough, but thank heavens it's not worse than that. Half an hour later, the race was restarted behind the safety car with a rolling start. So the Japanese Grand Prix became a two-part race, with the result being decided on the aggregate times of the two sections. So Michael Schumacher was 6.8 seconds ahead of Hill as the safety car peeled off. And this is the supreme challenge for Damon Hill. He's got to stop Schumacher pulling away, as he did previously, to the tune of some 7 seconds, to be fair, into the first right-hander. Now this is the S-curve, left, right, then into the long sweeping left-hander as they approach the Degner curve and the crossover point. Damon close up behind the Benetton Ford of World Championship leader Michael Schumacher, who knows that he is under pressure now, because he hasn't got just Damon Hill behind him in the Williams Renault. He's got his teammate Nigel Mansell and Jean Alesi, although already, as in the previous part of the race, the two men at the front are proving to be the class of the field, because you can see that there's a big gap developing between Damon Hill second in the Williams as they go under the crossover, and Jean Alesi, who is third. I didn't see Nigel Mansell. This is the hairpin. Schumacher, Hill. You just saw Alesi, you just saw Mansell. There's as big a gap between Alesi third and Mansell fourth as there is between Hill second and Alesi third. And Schumacher is demonstrating supreme ability. Look at him.
And in case anybody thinks it's strange that the Benetton and Schumacher was not refueled when the race was stopped, the rules actually actually do not permit that. There comes Schumacher into the pits. This must be frustrating, but the rules did not allow him to refuel in between those races.
Schumacher in, tyres and fuel, and that means to say that Damon Hill will shortly be going into the lead in Japan. Now, I am surprised that Damon Hill is leading. Damon Hill has gone through on lap 19. Now, here is the first major pit stop, well, the first pit stop at all that involved the actual race. Michael Schumacher on lap 19, 8 seconds. Now, 8:12's and 96, that means approximately just under 100 litres of fuel will have gone into the Benetton, making it heavier, making it, as I said, harder to accelerate, slower to decelerate, and Damon Hill is leading. The Japanese Grand Prix is going to be dominated by strategy on the track and in the pit lane, just as the European Grand Prix was. And there is the new race leader, Damon Hill, on his 19th lap. But of course, he's not stopped. Alesi there, Mansell behind him. They are fighting for second position on aggregate in the race. And so, as we wait for Schumacher to go through, is he going to be in second position on aggregate? No, he is not. Alesi has taken second place. I'm sorry if you're finding it difficult to reconcile what I'm talking about with the pictures that you are looking at, but I remind you that we're having to add figures together from the first leg and the second leg because the result will be decided on aggregate. You'll just have to take my word for it. But Alesi there in the Ferrari is in second place, and that's the man who has yet to finish higher than third this season. Schumacher is just behind him on aggregate. Mansell is just behind him in fourth position, although Mansell is fighting the Ferrari ahead of him.
Yes, he is indeed, but Damon Hill really is making excellent use now of the clear road ahead of him. He's now lapping 1.7 seconds ahead of anybody else, and that includes on this particular lap Michael Schumacher 23 seconds ahead. And Schumacher, we mustn't forget though, has made the first of what's undoubtedly going to be 2 stops. He's now just half a second there on aggregate behind Alesi.
And look at the way Mansell is giving, and this is it surely. Look at it, there's Nigel Mansell on the left. Wow, what determination, and he's going through. This reminds me of Eddie Irvine and Ayrton Senna last year. Wow. Mere words of mine cannot express my admiration for what these drivers are doing.
I must say that really is exceptionally brave stuff from Jean Alesi there. Those two drivers are both approaching that 130R corner at 175 miles an hour. They are going through that corner at 140, 150 miles an hour. And yet Alesi and Mansell, particularly Alesi, judging that gap, he judges that he can brake late enough to cut across to the inside as he slows from 175 to 150. And he knows perfectly well that if Mansell's going to stick his nose more than a foot ahead of the point at which he's at, they're going to touch, and they're both going to go off in a very big way. So tremendous judgment from both these two drivers. And I must say, Alesi seems to be being pretty fair. He is not just blocking the inside line into that corner and swerving right at the last minute. This is great racing.
Damon Hill in. Here is the race leader. Now, we'll watch out for Michael Schumacher. It's vital that the Williams team should get a good pit stop here. He was 27 seconds ahead, and he's going to get away in the lead, I'm pretty sure. Yes, he is. Damon Hill gets away in the lead, just as Alesi and Mansell look for them. There they are on the right. Wow! Alesi goes through, Mansell goes through, but they are not ahead of Hill on aggregate. And Schumacher has just crossed the line, and I'll give you the difference. It's now, as Damon Hill leads on lap 26, Alesi is definitely in second position, and Schumacher is in third place on aggregate 30 seconds behind Damon Hill.
Yes, things have worked out very well for Damon Hill now. That was a good pit stop from the Williams team. That's surely the first of their only pit stop for the race. But Damon, having had a clear track, don't forget Michael Schumacher had to come in for the first of his 2 stops. within 2 laps of the second part of the race being started, and as a result, Damon has made tremendous use of the space in front of him, the clear visibility that he's had, and he's been lapping roughly 2 seconds faster, taken on average throughout that session, and because of that he's pulled out this margin, which enabled him to come into the pits, put the fuel in, put the tyres on, and get out almost ahead of Nigel Mansell. But I think Alesi and Mansell will both have to come in very shortly. So although Damon is currently dropping back from these two, I think that he'll be back. And there it is.
Mansell in. Now, if you're wondering how much longer this race is going on, the answer is either 25 laps or 45 minutes. 45 minutes. Now, let's concentrate on Nigel Mansell. So, Schumacher has been in 8 seconds. And you just saw a flash of the Benetton in the background. Car up, wheels off. New wheels on, of course, with rain tyres on. They're putting quite a lot of fuel into the car. I think it was about 8 seconds when the fuel filler came out, in which case it's about the same amount of petrol that will have gone into Michael Schumacher's car. That's about 95 litres.
And that looks like it must be Mark Blundell off with his Tyrrell. We can't see any damage on that car, but on the other hand, spins have been the most likely reason for retirement. Let's think we may get a replay of that. Mark Blundell, who was in 9th place on aggregate there, just after his fuel stop, of course.
And that means to say that both the Tyrrell Yamahas are out of the Japanese Grand Prix, a race where the team had hoped so much to do well, because the Yamaha engine is, of course, made in Japan. And with John Judd, who is responsible for the V10. And over the line goes Michael Schumacher. Now we should be able to tell you very shortly, with Mika Häkkinen coming into the pit lane for his tyre stop. It's getting very, very confused and very, very serious. But now on lap 28, out of either 53 laps, that is Häkkinen, or 2 hours, whichever, Damon Hill is leading Jean Alesi by just under 1 second, but significantly as Häkkinen sprints out of the pit lane after his tyre stop and after Schumacher's tyre stop. That is Michael Schumacher. Damon Hill leads the Japanese Grand Prix by 6 seconds. Looking good from Michael Schumacher. He has won 5 races already this season, has Damon Hill. And Michael Schumacher has won 8. Now, here are the top 6 on aggregate on lap 28. Damon Hill, that you are looking at, is the race leader, and Jean Alesi is dropping back in the Ferrari.
And Damon running very well at the moment. He got that lead certainly at the start of this second part of the race, and he's lapping just 0.3 of a second slower than Michael Schumacher at the moment. But the fastest man on the circuit is Eddie Irvine, up into 5th place on aggregate with the Jordan car, so he's a man we should watch out for. But Damon Hill looking good, as Jean Alesi, I think, comes into the pits.
Yes, Jean Alesi was second, but it was a bit confusing and misleading because he had yet to make his tyre stop. This means to say that Michael Schumacher, with the implacable Frenchman there in the Ferrari, will move up into 2nd place. Not a bad stop. About the same amount of fuel again. They all seem to be taking on about 95 litres of fuel. You are looking at Michael Schumacher.
And I think Michael Schumacher's got a lot of work to do, because I'm really pretty sure he's got to make a second fuel stop. He made his first stop round about lap 18, and that is bang on target for the first of 2 stops. He was held up in the first part of the restart of the race when, having made that pit stop, he got held up behind other traffic. This is a tremendous break for Damon Hill. He's 5 seconds ahead of Schumacher. He's got more fuel in his car than Schumacher has, and yet he's lapping within 1/10 of a second. Schumacher needs to really pull out a 25-second lead, certainly 20-second lead in front of Damon Hill to accommodate the extra fuel stop that I believe he's got to do, but I may be wrong.
Looks unlikely. Let's hear from David Coulthard. David, what do you think of the show so far?
Well, it's Jonathan Theory is right, that Michael has to make another stop. And if that's the case, then it would appear that he's some way off the pace at the moment, because he's only able to match the pace that Damon's running with more fuel.
Well, we'll see. That's Eddie Irvine coming in. Eddie Irvine coming in, and Nigel Mansell now is on his 34th lap. And it's from now on that the toll is going to start to develop on his stamina. And Eddie Irvine getting away. 7.5 seconds.
Yes, and that's clearly put Eddie Irvine out of touch now with Nigel Mansell. He will lose. He was 12.8 seconds behind. He will lose some 20 seconds on that. So the fuel and tyre stop putting Eddie Irvine out of touch. And that's a shame for Irvine, because certainly his pace looked good, although he would have been on a lighter fuel load, we now know, than Nigel Mansell at this point.
Yeah, you saw Eddie nearly lose the Jordan there because he came out on comparatively cold tyres, and my goodness, Nigel's going for it.
And that is just the thing not to do, because that's what Johnny Herbert did in yesterday's qualifying session in the wet. And by that I mean put the wheels, put the tyres on the painted curb, and the painted curb is extremely slippery. And it must have taken all of Nigel's reactions to keep that car in one piece, to certainly prevent it from spinning, because it can break away very quickly indeed. But I fear that following Jean Alesi is going to continue to be a problem. Let's look at that again. He's drifting. It's the back goes, the front goes, all two right-hand side wheels of the car off. And Nigel Mansell clearly trying very hard indeed.
You're looking at Damon Hill at the present moment. Schumacher about 1.4 seconds behind him. Alesi third, Mansell fourth, Irvine fifth after his stop, Mika Hakkinen sixth, Frentzen seventh, Comas is in 8th position, but he's just been passed by Christian Fittipaldi.
And if my theory about Michael Schumacher's fuel stops are right, and there is Schumacher, he's going to have to be certainly a lot closer than that to have a chance of winning this race at the moment, because I think he'll be due into the pits for his second and last fuel stop within the next 2 laps. And that means that Damon Hill really is in tremendous shape.
Michael Schumacher leads on lap 37. They've just both gone through, and on aggregate you are looking at race leader again. Michael Schumacher now 1.1 seconds ahead of Damon Hill, but it all depends now on what the strategy is going to be, and the gigantic Japanese crowd is as enthralled as I hope you are, not only with the battle for the lead, but this battle between Jean Alesi and Nigel Mansell. And it is, of course, for third position, which Alesi has got on aggregate. He's got it 5 seconds ahead of Mansell, so Mansell's not only get ahead of the Ferrari that we're riding with now, but he's got to pull away. But I have a feeling that if only he could pull away, that if he could get past the Ferrari, he would be able to do that, pull away from it. But Jean Alesi, needless to say, is not going to make that easy for Nigel. Schumacher is on his 40th lap now, 3.8 seconds ahead of Hill, but is he coming in?
Yes, I think he is. This is great news for Damon Hill, because not only are the tyres out, but more significantly, the refuelling hose is being hoiked up, and it looks all along as if it has been a 2-stop routine for the Benetton team, and that's going to put Michael Schumacher 20 seconds further behind. He's only 4 seconds ahead of Damon Hill, so with 11 laps to go, this looks tremendously good for Damon Hill.
Yes, don't go away, because I can see the Benetton team now. They are in 2 distinct lines, and they're waiting for Schumacher. We're riding with Schumacher, looking back at him just now as Alesi again leads Mansell out of the approach to the crossover point which they're at. And Nigel Mansell has closed right up on the Ferrari, and he's going for it. He's trying to go around the outside as he did before. But again, Alesi holds the inside line, and again, Nigel has to run wide. Meantime, I'm looking. Schumacher's coming in. Here he is. Now, Damon Hill is going to retake the lead, no doubt about it. Wow, this is terrific stuff. Now, Schumacher, Hill passes. Damon Hill leads the Japanese Grand Prix, and Michael Schumacher has still not yet stopped. Now the Benetton stops. Jacks in, car up, wheels off, air guns on, new wheels. Schumacher gets away. 7 seconds stop, but, you have to allow for the fact that from the time you turn off the track until the time you rejoin it takes a minimum, an absolute minimum at the speed limit speed these days of 20 seconds. add on another 8 or 9 seconds, and that means to say that Michael Schumacher has lost at least 25 seconds to Damon Hill, who we look at now on his 41st lap out of 53, very much potentially now the winner of the Japanese Grand Prix, the gainer of 10 World Championship points, which would close the gap between himself and Michael Schumacher to just 1 point.
This could yet be the most exciting finish to any Grand Prix that we've had this year. Schumacher really on a charge now. He knows what it's going to take to eclipse Damon Hill, and the rain has stopped. The track is going to be progressively drying now, but I don't think sufficiently for there to be a case for coming in for dry tyres. It may, however, in the later stages, in another 5 or 10 minutes, be necessary, if the track does start to create a dry line, for these guys to keep off that on the straights to cool the tyres down.
But if Hill wins and Mansell is in 4th position, and you saw those glowing the wheel brake discs there, it will mean to say that the Williams team with 13 points will have moved ahead of Benetton. So I'm going to keep you in touch with the aggregate situation at the end of each lap. Damon Hill has just gone through at the end of his 44th lap into his 55th lap. You see Michael Schumacher exiting the chicane. The gap, as I said earlier on, was 12 seconds. Michael Schumacher completes the lap now, and it is 10 seconds. Flavio Briatore nods his approval. That's the race leader.
And well, he might, because that means that at this rate, Schumacher is going to overtake Damon Hill. And the big difference on this particular race is that to overtake Hill, he will not need to do it on the track. Now, normally it's one thing catching, it's another thing getting by. But because of the aggregate situation, Schumacher will merely have to continue lapping at this pace, and he will take the lead from Damon Hill without any passing manoeuvre on the circuit having taken place.
You are watching the 2 top drivers of the year fighting for the World Championship. One of them is going to win, the other is going to finish second, provided they stay on the track. The question is, in what order will they do it? And Schumacher is getting closer and closer and closer to make the difference between 1 point in the World Championship and a lot more. Now, there is Schumacher into the hairpin, the slowest point on the course with the exception of the chicane. It's about 45 miles an hour as he rolls round in these wet conditions, driving brilliantly. The Ford Cosworth V8 engine, which will not be propelling him in the Benetton next year, because Benetton are going to be using a Renault engine, as do Williams and Ligier this year. But the Ford engine with its Cosworth partners has performed brilliantly this year, because every race that Schumacher has won, the Ford Cosworth engine has won, confounding the critics who always said that a V8 would have to yield to a V10 or a V12, which gave superior power. Provided you've got the right sort of nimble package, which is what Benetton have produced with the Ford engine, it can do the job. Now, the gap was 10 seconds. Hill is on his 46th lap. Schumacher is about to join it, and it's 8.3 seconds. It's going to be very, very close.
It is indeed, and Damon Hill's got the further handicap of, or a handicap of one of the LaRousse cars ahead of him. Now he's going to have to overtake that in the next 5 laps, and that's how many there are to go, whereas I don't think necessarily Michael Schumacher is, so that's going to be difficult for him. Let's just hope that the LaRousse keeps to one side to let Damon continue lapping, but he's going to have to up the pressure, he's going to have to up the pace, because at the moment I fear, and I haven't done the maths, it's very tight indeed, that Schumacher is closing too quickly for Damon Hill to win, but it's going to be tight.
Yes, but Damon, that we're looking at now, must be careful not to overdo it. Even if he lost to Schumacher, he would get 6 points. If he goes off the circuit, he gets none, and Schumacher would be the world champion here in Japan. So Damon Hill has to walk the tight line between going as quickly as he possibly can and staying on the track. Lap 46.
And the arithmetic is that Michael Schumacher needs to lap 1.6 seconds faster per lap to get ahead of Hill by the finish of the race. On the last lap, he was 1.7 seconds quicker. So he's just inside the margin that he needs.
And Eric Comas needs to get out of Damon Hill's way if the Englishman is to maintain the speed that he's doing now. Never mind go faster. It's looking for cooperation, and Eric Comas is actually quite a long way behind Fittipaldi, who is 8th in the race. Comas is 9th on aggregate, and he's a long way ahead of Olivier Panis, who is in 10th position, but he must yield to Damon Hill to help the Englishman. And the track is definitely drying out. Into lap 47 now. Hill is there. The gap 8.3 seconds at the end of lap 46. And the gap as Michael Schumacher goes through is 7 seconds. So he's knocked 1.3 seconds off. How are we doing, Jonathan?
Well, he's 0.3 of a second behind on that lap. So Hill is at this rate going to win the race. But who knows? It's desperately close here. But we saw Damon Hill follow Comas in the Larousse. He didn't get ahead of him down on the main straight, so we don't know what's happening out at the back, but it could well be influenced by this back marker.
4 laps to go, and if the pace is maintained at the present, in my mental arithmetic says that Damon Hill's going to win this race by a second. But it's that close. It really is that close. When just 4 laps to go, Damon Hill leads, Schumacher second, but there are other people in this race. Alesi is still third, Mansell is still 5.5 seconds behind the Ferrari in 4th place. Eddie Irvine is some 40 seconds behind Mansell in 5th place, and Irvine finished 6th in his first Grand Prix at Japan last year. He's improved 1 place this year. Mika Hakkinen is currently 6th, and that is the man who finished 3rd last year, this year in a McLaren Peugeot. And in 7th place is Frentzen, 8th is Fittipaldi, 9th is Comas, 10th is Panis, 11th is Salo, 12th is Zanardi, 13th is David Brabham, still just 1 lap short. But it's the race at the front, and here is Damon Hill coming up behind the Lotus.
And sadly, being behind the Lotus through there, that may have cost Hill the race. He's going for the inside. He must get through. He does, but he still would have lost a few precious tenths of a second. Now then, the gap was 7 seconds, and Schumacher will need to have closed that by 1.8 seconds, bringing it down to 5.2 seconds to be in line for winning the race. So we're looking at 5.2 as being the gap to Schumacher. That's the critical point.
Right, into lap 48. And I'm waiting for Schumacher now. It was 7 seconds. If Schumacher is less than 5.2 seconds behind Damon Hill on aggregate, he's 5.242 seconds to the nearest 100th of a second. It's a dead heat at the present moment. Fantastic, with 3 laps to go. Damon Hill and Mansell is having a go at Alesi. But again, he's into the chicane and out of it. Well, it may have taken a long time for the Japanese Grand Prix to get going, but my goodness, it is flying now.
Absolutely, but we don't think we're going to know the final result until the cars literally cross the line. But let's just reflect back on how we've got in this situation. A great start from Damon Hill has been all important for his challenge here today. He stayed on the road in the very, very treacherous conditions in the first part of the race. He did nothing wrong then, and the Williams team have had the right pit stop strategy. 1 stop was the way to go. For Schumacher, got away on the first start superbly, but for Benetton on this occasion it's been the wrong strategy, surely stopping twice, and as a result he got bogged down in traffic, and that's given him so much work to do now in the later stages of the race. Jean Alesi gained. This has been a superb drive for Jean Alesi. He gained from a tremendous start that got him ahead of Nigel Mansell. He was behind him on the grid, an advantage that Mansell has never been able to get by. And finally Mansell, well, I'm sure frustration is going to be the word for his weekend. Frustration in qualifying when he was not able to have a run in the dry, potentially get on pole, and certainly frustration for following Jean Alesi. But here is the real battle. Damon Hill just ahead still of Michael Schumacher.
And while we're concentrating on that, a quick word for Mika Salo, who has just been passed by Michael Schumacher, because the Finnish driver is in 10th position ahead of his teammate Sandro Zanardi in his first Grand Prix. Hill has crossed the line. It was 5.2 seconds. 2 laps to go. 2 laps to go, including the one that they are on now. It was 5.2 seconds. Schumacher goes across the line, and it's 4.2 seconds. I'm beginning to think that Damon Hill is going to do it.
Yep, I agree with you. It should have been 3.4 if Damon Hill or Schumacher was going to catch Damon Hill. This is looking very good. It could be traffic-induced, and let's just hope that both these drivers can have a clear run now for just the next 2 laps, or certainly none gets advantage or deficit, because if that's the case, Damon Hill will win the Japanese Grand Prix.
And as I said, if he does that, he will be on a flyer in Adelaide. So 7.2 miles to go when they started this lap, and they're now through the S-curve, down towards the Degner curve, halfway round the lap when they go under the crossover. And you'll see that coming up in just a moment. You're looking at Michael Schumacher, who was 4.2 seconds, and there is Damon Hill, and he's coming up behind Christian Fittipaldi. And Christian Fittipaldi is well down the field. He's in 8th position, and he's let Damon Hill through.
And Damon Hill really driving superbly. This must be the most pressure that Damon Hill has ever been under as he lights up the brakes once again. He knows perfectly well that to win this race, it's going to be essential to really preserve his championship chances. He will be being kept informed by Frank Williams, by the team, of that gap to Schumacher. He's having to absolutely wring everything he possibly can out of himself and the car to keep ahead and try and win this Grand Prix.
Yes, and he's coming up to the chicane for the last time but one. The chicane leads into the last turn, and the gap was 4.2 seconds. There is Michael Schumacher. You can see that there is very definitely a dry line emerging now as they prepare to start the last lap of a sensational Japanese Grand Prix. And Damon Hill has crossed the line. The gap was 4.2 seconds. Here is Michael Schumacher approaching the start of his last lap, and the gap as he goes across the line is 2.45 seconds. Damon Hill, and on the previous lap, Schumacher took 1.8 seconds out of Damon Hill's lead. It's going to be something like half a second or a second if they keep up the pace that they're doing now. Wow!
And clearly traffic playing a big part in what's gone on here. Hill losing 2 seconds to Schumacher because of that traffic. Following Morbidelli, probably we saw the moment when Hill got sideways out of the hairpin. Now it could be Schumacher's turn to get held up, but it's probably all going to depend on what happens to the back marker ahead of Schumacher on this final lap.
Oh, the slide from Damon Hill. He's really on the ragged edge there. He's into his last half lap now because he's gone under the crossover point. You see him lock up his left front wheel, and it's looking a bit ragged here. He's got to keep it smooth for the rest of the lap.
Yes, smoother than that, and that probably will have cost him 0.3 of a second a lap, and at this pace, with a gap between them, that could be critical.
2.4 seconds it was, but Michael Schumacher was lapping 1.8 seconds faster on the previous lap. The two team bosses, Frank Williams and Flavio Briatore, are consumed with excitement, as I am. Now, Hill is approaching the chicane. This is the last time, and I'm looking for the checkered flag now for Damon Hill to come home, completing his race distance. But has he completed it when he does so as the winner of the Japanese Grand Prix to close the World Championship gap between himself and Michael Schumacher to 1 point as they go into Australia? Or will it have increased to 9 points? Well, we'll know the answer very soon. Damon Hill takes the checkered flag, but we wait for Michael Schumacher. Aggregate time, I remind you, is what matters. Here is Schumacher. Now he's got somebody in front of him. Is he going to be delayed? 3.36 seconds. Damon Hill wins the Japanese Grand Prix and takes his 6th win of the year to close the World Championship gap between himself and Michael Schumacher to one small... Oh, Mansell goes ahead of Alesi, and he's done it on the track. He's not going to do it on aggregate, but Nigel Mansell puts his hand out of the cockpit and says, "There we are, folks, I'm back." And indeed he is. What an absolutely sensational Japanese Grand Prix. A well-deserved, brilliant victory for Damon Hill, who started this race under the most terrific psychological pressure, has resisted it and won for the 6th time. Jean Alesi and Nigel Mansell embrace after a practically race-long battle for 3rd place. This has been a vintage Grand Prix.
Damon, the world will say that this was the greatest of your 9 wins, but what does Damon Hill say?
I think I'd agree with that, because the significance of it is so great, and to win now and be within 1 point of, I can hardly believe it now myself. It's just tremendous to go into the last race for the World Championship 1 point behind the leader is tremendous.
Now, take us through the race. You must have hoped to have taken the lead at the first corner in the wet, but you didn't.
No, I got a poor start and a lot of wheel spin, and so naturally I was a bit despondent about that, but I knew that it was a long way to go. And the first part of the race I was staying with Michael quite easily. And then after the downpour, it was the restart of that. He pulled away quite a bit. And then, but I can understand why now, because he would have been on less fuel.
Now, the Williams team in the recent past has been accused of getting the strategy wrong when the Benetton team got it right, but not today.
Not today, and it just shows you that, you know, it's easy to criticise.
Now, I said during the commentary that Damon Hill would be going to Australia on a colossal high. Would you agree with that?
I'm taking the aeroplane, actually, but I might as well fly. I could take off now, actually, and fly myself. Yes, terrific. I feel absolutely terrific, and looking forward to it.
I know it must be difficult for you to talk because of the state you're in mentally, understandably, but looking ahead to Australia, does the circuit suit you? Does the circuit suit the car? Are you going to be going better than the Benetton there?
Yes. I'm not going to say no, am I? Crikey. No, not the way I feel now. No, it suits us. I got the fastest lap there last year. I was quickest on the second day of qualifying, and I think it suits us because it is a horsepower place, and the car's going well, and I'm up for it.
Damon, you've brought the championship alive, bless you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So, a superb 6th win of the year under colossal pressure for Damon Hill, a mere 3.4 seconds ahead of Michael Schumacher, and a non-stop race-long battle for third between Alesi and Mansell resolved in Alesi's favour by 4 seconds. Eddie Irvine in the points for the second successive Japanese Grand Prix, 5th ahead of Heinz-Harald Frentzen. 1 point between Schumacher and Hill in the World Championship now, with 10 points to be won at the last race of the year in Australia next Sunday. No changes for the next 4 places, but what a cliffhanger for number 1 in 1995. In the seesaw for leadership of the Constructors' Championship, it's Williams back at the top, 5 points ahead of Benetton, but it could all change in Adelaide. Now we go down under with great expectations to see the World Championship resolved in Australia for the first time since 1986, when Nigel Mansell lost to Alain Prost. He'll be there again next Sunday, and so will we. Join us live on BBC 2 at 3:15 AM next Sunday morning. It'll be worth getting up early for.